Welcome back to another episode on the MLD Balls page. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about All Star forward Brandon Ingram and places that he may end up in because the New Orleans Pelicans, they don't seem like they're interested in paying him because he wants to be paid the max dollar. That's 52 mil a year. And on the Pelicans side, yes, you're an All Star. You're one of the 40 best players in the NBA, but can you stay healthy? And while we're asking that from you, like, can you stay healthy? You're our second best player. You know, we also having the same issues with our best player. So it's kind of hard for a team to dedicate as much resources as the Pelicans would in a duo that just can't stay healthy. So I understand it from that point. But man, Brandon Ingram is super talented. But at the same time, they don't have to commit to him because of the ascension of Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy should be a starter on every single NBA team. And so should Herb Jones. So it's like those guys play the same position as Brandon Ingram. And Brandon Ingram, he is, yes, better than both of those players. He's a star. Those guys are like star role players. And you don't find too many of those. So if you could trade your star for another star that could fit those star role players in Zion, Pelicans might be in better shape, and I think they will be in better shape if they move on from Brandon Ingram. So it seems like that's what they're going to do this off season. We're going to talk about a couple teams that they could trade with. This is all assumptions. I'm not a part of no NBA teams yet. NBA teams, if you need somebody, call up on me, just shoot me a DM or, But yeah, this is just gonna be my own thoughts of Brandon Ingram. Yeah, I do think Brandon Ingram's a top 40 player in the NBA. He's a great playmaker. That's where he developed his game the most in New Orleans. He's one of those guys who you can keep him out on triple double watch because he does reach the 10 assist mark sometimes. And if you get lucky with him, you can get 10 rebounds because he's 6'8", just for anybody betting per. But yeah, Brandon Ingram, I do think uh, this playoff run by him, it was a part of his health, and that's the whole issue with him, his health. And yeah, we're gonna talk about the landing spots. We got the Cavaliers, the Hawks, the Pistons, the Nets, the Hornets. I do think it's gonna be an Eastern Conference team. Um, Before we talk about the conference teams and the specific trades, I do think the Portland Trailblazers are a team that's not on this list that I think need a blitz Brandon Ingram. I don't look. I know it's early for Scoot to just trade him, but I watched Scoot. He was nice at the end of last season. It's not like I'm totally out on him. It's just I understand that the Trailblazers haven't had a all-star forward in a decade, man. It's been so long, all we have to do is pay somebody and we could get him. And we're not a team that gets free agents, like the Portland Trailblazers. Y'all don't get free agents, man. If you could go ahead and sign and trade for Brandon Ingram, give up a little bit of, just get him for cheaper than he would usually be, and he's not going to come here in free agency. This is your only chance. This is how you get your star players for these low these teams that aren't at high marketplace like Detroit, Charlotte, Cleveland. This is how you get your stars for these teams. You don't get them like Los Angeles in free agency. Nobody just comes to Charlotte. Okay, people come to Miami. People come to LA. People come to New York. Brandon Ingram, if he's a free agent, he I don't know where he would go. I don't think he reaches free agency. Actually, he's too good. He's too good, and we're gonna talk about the first place that he could go in the Cleveland Cavaliers, and where I think Brandon Ingram will land. I do think Brandon Ingram will be a Cleveland Cavalier after this offseason. I just think that the New Orleans Pelicans have a need at the center position. And Jared Allen, with this trade, you can make him their starting center. He has a starting lineup of CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion, and Jared Allen. That team is automatically one of the best, if not the best, defense in the NBA. Jared Allen is that good on defense, and this team was already a top 10 defensive unit and is very defensive minded. They would love the fit of Jared Allen. It's a better fit than Brandon Ingram. If you don't like the CJ McCollum part of the team, you'll figure that out in another deal. It's a whole summer, but hey, step one for the New Orleans Pelicans, check. They got to fit with a star player. For their star player, they got another star that fits. And on the other end of the spectrum, when you're making a deal, it's two sides of the coin. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they get exactly what they need. Brandon Ingram is a secondary scoring option, and he also gives Donovan Mitchell a reason to sign back. Donovan Mitchell, you have to bribe him to come back, and the way you bribe him is by giving him a winning opportunity. It seems like Jared Allen lost the locker room with that team, unfortunately. Not saying he's deservingly so, but like I said, Jared Allen might have just lost the locker room of that team. It's a lot of reports coming out on him not wanting to take the shot. Am I saying he's wrong? No, but the team, team feels away. He feels away. And if they needed anything, they needed a secondary scoring option. Darius Garland disappeared a lot in the playoffs, and he did the same thing the year before. So it's like, I understand Brandon Ingram wasn't all that better in the playoffs, but I seen him that one year against the Suns. Yeah, against the Suns that one year where Devin Booker and Brandon Ingram, they had a couple duels against each other, man. It was a real fun series to watch in the first round. Brandon Ingram, when he was healthy, he did some stuff in the playoffs, and I feel like he is the ideal playoff player, in my opinion. Brandon Ingram is that 6'8" playmaking forward that could keep on punishing the defense because he has a shot that's automatic. His automatic shot is his mid-range. He's that 6'8" forward that could pass at a high level. He could score on all three levels of the ball. Ideally, Brandon Ingram should work very well in the playoffs, and he has before. It's just this year he was hurt, and hey, you gotta bet on Brandon Ingram's health. The Cavaliers will have a starting lineup of Garland, Mitchell, Brandon Ingram. They find out what's happening in that power forward, and then they move Evan Mobley to the center position. That improves the spacing of the team because at the center position, Evan Mobley could shoot, but as a power forward, no. So now you will have a center that could shoot, and then you could go get you a power forward that could shoot, and that team will probably want a defensive power forward. But yeah, they got a whole offseason to work with, so we'll see what else they do. Or they could go with the Darius Garland swap. Now the Pelicans will have Darius Garland, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson, and then they could go ahead and find a center in free agency to work with, on the Cleveland Cavaliers part. And this is the trade that if I had to pick one, I think this is the one that does happen. I think Donovan Mitchell moving to point guard is the ideal move for the Cavaliers. He did very well at it at the time that Darius Garland was hurt. And you just saw two back-to-back playoff runs where Darius Garland kind of dropped. I'm scared if I'm Cleveland. I know I have a little backcourt. I don't want that anymore. The Pelicans, they want a small guard that could create for them. That's exactly what they need. I think this is the deal. I think this is the perfect fit. Brandon Ingram could run the three with Max Strus at shooting guard for Cleveland, and then you keep Mobley. And they probably still do move on from Jared Allen still. I think Cavaliers are going to make some big changes this offseason. I think it will be Brandon Ingram, but let's talk about some of the other places that Brandon Ingram could go. We got the Atlanta Hawks. We could have a big move in Atlanta because Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and the number one pick, that is right there 3 of the most 5 valuable trade assets in the NBA this offseason. So depending on how they feel about Trae Young, they could move on from Trae Young and get Brandon Ingram. They'll have a team of DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, whoever they get at pick 1, and Jalen Johnson. The Hawks have so many ways they could go because they also could go and trade DeJounte Murray instead. It's just whoever they prefer at point guard. We don't know how inside the locker room Atlanta truly feels, but I personally think Trae Young is the better player. I would move on from DeJounte Murray. But if there was a deal, this possibly could be a deal. You get DeJounte Murray to the Pelicans. He fits that defensive-minded team, and they need a point guard. So the Pelicans will love this deal. Pelicans would also love the Trae Young deal because they get an offensive juggernaut who could throw lobs to Zion all day. Another deal is Brandon Ingram to the Detroit Pistons. I think this would be the Fred VanVleet of this offseason, where Brandon Ingram goes to a team and he dramatically improves Alperen Sengun, Cade Cunningham, because he gives him somebody who could actually pass the ball to, just having good players on your team after being the worst team in NBA history should be something that you look for, or having the worst losing streak in NBA history is something that you should look forward to. Another team is the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, they don't have a lot of ways that they could upgrade their team besides trade. They don't have their first round picks, so they're going to have to be very active in the trade market and getting star players for cheap. If they are not willing to pay Nicholas Claxton, like I said, the Pelicans, they are very much a search for any center, and especially one that's defensive minded, they will love. So they could go ahead and give them Nicholas Claxton. If they're unwilling to pay him, they go ahead and pay Brandon Ingram. Because Brandon Ingram, he is another, you got to pay someone. Brooklyn, you can't be cheap. You got to pay these players. So either you don't believe in Nicholas Claxton and you trade for Brandon Ingram, but Brandon Ingram will be a more expensive player, but he will be the best player on your team. So come on, hey, if you can sign the best player on your team, go ahead and do it. If you want to keep Nicholas Claxton and you like the idea of Ingram, Bridges, and Claxton together, you could go ahead and move on Cam Thomas instead. Cam Thomas he's not as valuable as Nicholas Claxton, so it'll come with the 2 first-round picks from Phoenix Suns. The thing about this deal is you will have a vacant spot at point guard. You have Mikal at shooting guard, who I think Mikal's true position is shooting guard. So that's so ideal that he'll be next to Brandon Ingram. And then Cam Johnson and then Nicholas Claxton. After Ben Simmons' contract expires, you have a max deal. You have a lot of money you can work with. A lot of it will go to Brandon Ingram, but Mikal Bridges is on contract. Cam Johnson is on contract. Brandon Ingram, you're going to extend him, and then that Ben Simmons stuff is over with. You could go ahead and find you one more piece at the guard position to uplift that team. So Brooklyn, for a team that don't have their own future picks, Brandon Ingram's a way that you could escape being in the middle, or you'll be in the middle forever with him. But hey, it's Brandon Ingram, right? The Charlotte Hornets. At pick 6, I don't really see anybody that the Charlotte Hornets should take. I don't see anything that wows me. Maybe Donovan Clingan for the Hornets at 6, maybe. But like I said, the Pelicans in search for a center. Nick Richards isn't as good, but the Pelicans got more stuff they could play with at pick 6 than the Hornets. Hornets, they got LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Brandon Ingram, Mark Williams. That 4 as your core is a scary thing, because that is a very big 4 people who are very skilled. LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and Brandon Ingram at the 1, 2, 3. That is an identity that your team could live off of. And you can get a tall power forward and just suffocate teams while you're having the ideal positional pie chart, because Brandon Ingram's like a legit small forward. Brandon Miller's like a Paul George, so he really could play shooting guard like naturally. LaMelo Ball's a legit point. Mark Williams is a legit center, and you go find you a legit power forward that could stretch the floor. I don't know who that would be, but that team could become very competitive very quickly if they were to get Brandon Ingram, because LaMelo Ball didn't play last year, so they would add 2 all-stars to a team that LaMelo has taken to the play-in without Brandon Miller. So imagine if you add Brandon Miller and Brandon Ingram. Brandon and Brandon, if you feel me, hey, Brandon and Brandon, man, go ahead and get you Brandon and Brandon. The last deal is Brandon Ingram for Scoot Henderson in pick 14. I think that the Blazers, man, they've had this point guard all-stars at the position for like the past 20 years, man. They always have little guards that are star players. Anthony Simons, why can't you just buy into Anthony Simons a little bit? He at the age of 24, he averaged 23, 5, and 6. Like, just can he play basketball? I understand that he was hurt, and that actually is the question about him. Can he play basketball? It's funny that I said that, but he's 24. Just chill out a little bit. If he's hurt, Yo, it's okay. It's okay. Y'all not in no. I understand. I'm saying that they're not in no rush, and it feels like I'm rushing them by trading Scoot Henderson. But it's like they're rushing Anthony Simons' timeline. They that was his first year without Damian Lillard, and you already have his replacement. Like, that's crazy. Like, you haven't had an all-star forward in 10 years, and you're drafting your replacement. Like, uh, I understand he was best player available, but in hindsight, was he the best player available? I'm not saying that he's not amazing or anything. At the end of the season, Scoot Henderson played better. I'm not naive to that. I watched the games. He looked more comfortable. I understand that point guards, they take longer to get comfortable into the game of the NBA. But if Simons, Sharp, and Scoot all hit their ceilings, I wouldn't want them on the court together. I want Sharp at shooting guard. I really like Sharp at shooting guard. He could play small forward, he could, but I just like him at shooting guard more. So if you could get Simons, Sharp, Ingram, Grant, Ayton, that's still a young core. Like, you're still rebuilding with that team. Yeah, like it's not like you're doing that to go all in. You're just fitting the team better together. You got Robert Williams on the bench. You have a lot of people who have injury problems. I understand Simons stay hurt, Ingram stay hurt, but that's just what it is sometimes, man. Look at the playoffs. The Celtics, people are saying everyone they played is hurt. Oh, lucky run. Everything has luck at the end of the day. What you have to do is give yourself a chance and put yourself and your players in the best position to grow. It's not even about just banking on potential or trying to win a championship. It's trying to grow. It's hard for Scoot Henderson to grow while him and Simons on the same team. It would be better for both of their careers would benefit from this, because Scoot Henderson would get the job in New Orleans and play along Herb, Trey, Zion, and I think he would beat out those guys on the bench because he is talented. And if you don't think he's talented enough to beat out those guys on the bench and earn the starting job solidified, then that's exactly why they should trade him for Brandon Ingram, because that means you don't, you're not that high on him. Me, on the other end, I do think that he could take that starting job and would, but it wouldn't fit as well if him and Simons did it together. Because him and Simons, that means one of them is playing shooting guard. I think defensively that's a problem. And it probably is going to be Simons that gets moved. It's just me personally. I would keep Simons. I'm really high on Anthony Simons. I think he's a baller. But yeah, if Anthony Simons and Brandon Ingram were to pair up next to each other, that would be a fun scene. You'd have Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharp, Brandon Ingram, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton off the bench. You got Robert Williams. You got Chris Murray. You got Kamara, that guy. You got Dope Reef. It ain't like I'll be watching too many Blazers games. Hey, who else that Blazers bench guy if we were there? Man, Blazers gonna just get stuff. And also, the Blazers, if they were to get Brandon Ingram, they still would have pick 7 in the draft. So they'd also be getting someone in the draft. They got pick 14 and 7. So yeah, they have their team and add someone to the draft. So I don't understand how that's still not a rebuilding team, But either way, thank you for everybody to listening to this video. I think Brandon Ingram is gonna land on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Next video I'm gonna do is gonna be, what if I was the GM of the Orlando Magic and what would I do? Anthony Simons. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Hope you tuned in and enjoyed your time listening to me talk basketball for the past 20 minutes. And if you did, come on, if you stayed for 20 minutes, I have 7 subscribers. Can you please subscribe to me, man? I have 7. Okay. I'm sorry for begging on. Either way, I'm out here begging for stuff on the internet. I gotta stop. But everybody have a nice day and God bless.